Yeah, before we start, I would just like to say thank you to Steve Johnson, Jim and Debbie Petrine, Floyd Merriman for their continued support of our program and Virginia Tech athletics. It's nice for us to get the weight room completed and the equipment in there. It's really been fantastic. We're already reaping the benefits from that. We'll head to our players' lounge next. It's kind of the next thing on the docket, which should be started here shortly. Obviously, we start practice tomorrow. We'll go Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for the next 5 weeks. Excited to get on the field. Obviously, it's an opportunity we were not afforded last year. We need these chances to improve and coach and experiment a little bit and really just get out on the field and practice. Last year was obviously missing spring ball and then fall camp being what it was. We just didn't have a lot of time to try and bring people along, young players or inexperienced players. So I'm excited about this. It's always the best time of year, those 15 practices in the spring. That we're excited to go be a part of. I've said this before too. The kids I think are excited to go practice. They've had about enough of the winter conditioning part, and that's kind of the neat thing about what we do. Is about the time you've had enough of one thing, you moved it to the next phase. So, again, we'll kick it off on Tuesday morning and hopefully have a really productive spring. Yeah, I mean, we'll still give those other guys opportunities to compete, but starting out, usually I'm in here saying that it'll all be cut up evenly, and we'll evaluate it as we go through. We'll continue to evaluate it as we go through, but we won't start with it all divided up equally. I mean, Braxton will get a lion's share of the ones. Knox will get to work with some with the ones. And take reps with the twos, and then Connor will get a lot of work with the twos as well, and then we'll evaluate that as we move through the spring.
With the offensive line, is this the fewest you've had kind of for a spring scholarship players, and does that change anything, kind of the way you guys run things, just in terms of some numbers at that position?
Probably the fewest that I can remember. Yeah, we'll have to kind of play it by ear as we go through the spring. I mean, we do some drill work where it's half line, so the left side is operating independently of the right side, which allows us to get some more reps. But you've got to have people in order to pull that off. So I mean, we'll have to be a little bit careful with that part of it. We'll get plenty of reps for some of the younger players that haven't maybe traditionally gotten as much work. So yeah, we'll have to we'll have to alter it just a little bit. Conversely, our numbers are better everywhere else than they've ever been. So where we've typically had to trim back because we were down skill players or wideouts or DBs or whatever it was, those drills will be fine, or at least starting out will be fine, but we'll have to take it into consideration with the offensive line.
And then anybody that you can announce that's out kind of for spring with injuries, do you guys anybody got any sideline?
No. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Matt Johnson will do much. He had an ACL in the fall. Nigel Simmons had shoulder surgery. I don't think they'll do much. Everybody else will work their way back into it, at varying degrees. Jaden will be working back in there. I don't know that he'll scrimmage, but I think he's going to be able to practice. And, there's a bunch of guys at kind of varying degrees. Caleb Smith's another one that will work his way into it, but we'll at least find a way to get work for a lot of those guys, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Andy?
Yeah, Justin, I couldn't hear the opening statement, so I apologize if you covered some of this ground. I suppose this sort of depends on your definition of normal, but how normal of a spring spring do you think you can have this year?
I mean, who knows? I just feels like things change all the time. Um, I mean, the first thing that we know that won't happen is we won't have recruits on campus during spring practice. That changes the dynamic of it quite a bit. Um, but I just don't know. This will be kind of take it one day at a time and see how things go. And you're always one test or one contact trace away from things changing dramatically. So we've been in pretty good shape throughout the winter time. We know things can change quickly. Hopefully we'll stay the course and be able to have a good, productive spring. But I just don't know that. I don't know that I can answer those questions. There's still things. Obviously the spring game. It depends on so many, things from the state government to what our university wants to do. We've already announced that our graduation will not be in person. So, I mean, there's just a lot of kind of balls up in the air for how all that stuff will play out, quite honestly.
On defense, with Dax at linebacker, it sounds like he'll slide into that Mike spot. He's sort of been shuffling between the two, and I think when we talked to Justin Hamilton, he talked about how maybe you guys just assume he can do so much because he can, he kind of figure things out in his mind so easily. Do you think it'll help him to be in sort of one spot and focus on that Mike position that I think a lot of people have thought is a more natural spot to him?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of answered your own question with the fact that, I mean, I think that's his natural spot. I think that'll help him as much as anything. He's just, the problem was Ray Shard was there, and so moving Dax over there, I think athletically he fits that spot a little bit more. Obviously, letting him just concentrate on one position, should benefit him from a mental standpoint. The key will be, in my opinion, how we handle the guys behind Dax and Allen. We need to get those next couple groups moving forward because there's not a lot of game experience with those guys. But I anticipate that he'll settle into solely working at Mike pretty quickly.
And how eager are you to see these freshman defensive ends that you had from last year, Wooten, Bryant, and Beatles, now that they've had a little bit of time to acclimate to college and they're going through a spring here?
Yeah, I'm excited for them to get out there and get coached a little bit. They've done the work in the weight room. When you look at Beatles and how his body's continued to change, the strides Wooten has made and Bryant, you get excited about what they can be. Now they're still a long ways away in terms of learning how to play the game, but it'll be a really big spring for them, just in terms of their mental development of how to go play end.
Mike Barber.
Morning, Coach. I'm curious, last year, Justin, kind of getting the first time with the reins to the defense, you didn't get spring, you got that disjointed fall with everything you guys were dealing with. What's kind of his approach, and what have you talked to him about in terms of maybe this being a little more normal chance to establish what he wants to do?
Well, certainly. I mean, an opportunity to start at square one and teach and focus on fundamentals and really try to build it from the ground up. That doesn't mean completely new schematics. That means just taking a little bit more of a whole philosophy in there, being able to let the kids understand how it all fits together. I think is beneficial. So certainly a much, hopefully, assuming things go well, a much better situation for us to be entering the spring.
And, a year ago, it was so all over the place with what you guys had to deal with. Did Justin learn anything about what maybe works or doesn't work well for his ideas, or was it so patching holes that it was kind of not a big year for what he was kind of learning from what he's doing?
Oh, I mean, I think that, that group probably learned a lot about each other, the staff in there. I think there's certainly an element of there wasn't time to learn anything. It was just trying to figure out what 11 people we could put on the field on a given week. But, I think those guys having some comfort with each other and what we're asking our kids to do, there's kind of no substitute for going through the season and hashing those things out, and especially when you don't get to hash them out in the spring or in fall camp. So I'm sure they learned a lot about each other, what they'd like to see and what they'd obviously not like to see.
And last one for me, Andy asked you the idea of, does it feel normal at all? I'm curious, do you have to do things still differently on the field? Do you limit contact? I know you talked about that the actual exposure wasn't as bad as maybe you expected when you studied that. Do you have to do anything different with contact and things like that in the spring?
No, I don't know that the way the practice looks, the way that some of the drills are structured, for the, the time that you're standing, we'll still continue with our way we do stretch and, how we structure our lines and that sort of stuff. But as far as, I don't think it'll change much the activities that are actually occurring on the field.
Thank you.
Norm.
Hey, Justin, you already talked a little bit about the offensive line and not having as many numbers there as you might have had in the past. But when you look at developing depth at specific positions, is the tackle spot one of the ones where you maybe are most I don't know if concerned is the word, maybe most interested in how that kind of pans out, just because you've got a lot to develop there, it seems like.
Yeah, I feel probably about the same as I do about guard. Not very good right now. We're just awfully thin there. So, we maybe have a little bit more experience at backup at guard than we do at tackle. But, I think the whole second group there is, it's going to be a big spring for them to get their feet wet and try and find a couple guys that can help throughout the season.
Then in your secondary, you've got obviously a lot of guys that have gotten some experience now, and then some other guys who might be trying to carve out some roles, more prominent roles this spring. I guess guys like Thompson and Peoples. Are there some guys back there that you're interested to see how they've kind of grown since last season, and who specifically do you think has a chance to sort of step forward and maybe take a little bit bigger role?
Well, it'll be interesting to see. Nasir Peoples is the first one that comes to my mind, just because I felt like he was really coming on when he got hurt. And, he won't be full this spring, but he's going to get to go out there and do some stuff. So he can still take steps forward, even in a limited role in the spring. Keontae is somebody that started early in the season and, didn't play nearly as much as the season went along, that, really needs those opportunities to practice and communicate back there. J.R. Walker's another kind of younger player that got thrown in the fire a little bit and really needs a little confidence and ability to go practice on a consistent basis at one position and see if he can continue to improve. And then we've got all those true freshmen that will be interesting to get them out there and let them run around a little bit.
Andrea.
Justin, just from a big picture standpoint, what are you hoping to see out of the team in terms of some of the intangibles you'll be looking for with leadership and chemistry that'll give you a good idea about what you have headed into the season?
Well, I think we have a great group of guys that have played a lot of football, that have been productive. They're not the most outgoing group. You know, can they feel a little bit more comfortable standing on the stage instead of standing next to the stage? You know, that's kind of a challenge for some of those players, and I've seen some of it in a really positive light through the off season. You know, we have some specific things we'll need to work on. We have got to get back to practicing the way that we are accustomed to practicing. I mean, that's a huge point of emphasis for us. And, you know, that's got to have to be, you know, as coaches, we got to do a great job. But as the players and the leaders have to bring that about in 15 practices. That's going to be, I think, really important to our success is can we get back to what made us, you know, what gave us an opportunity was those 2 hours on the field. It was very competitive, but, you know, safe but competitive, and, you know, people were accountable, and we've got to get back into that on a more regular basis.
So as a follow-up to that, you feel like you guys got away from that a little bit?
Well, we were just hanging on, Andrea. Like, we couldn't field a practice. Like, I mean, fall camp, we didn't have anybody out at practice. I mean, it was kind of sad. So we've got it. You know, we got no spring ball last year, so we haven't done it in some time. And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. It's just we got to recalibrate for what's an acceptable practice. You know, hopefully things are more normal so that we can achieve it.
And one more, if I could, the ACC announced that intra-conference transfers now will be allowed to happen. I'm just wondering, just from the coach perspective, is this something that the ACC felt like it needed to get ahead of because it's going to be coming down eventually from the NCAA?
I'm sure that's probably how they felt. You know, I don't want to speak for the league, but you know, all of that reform is coming, and I don't think it's really very surprising that our league decided to do that. I mean, it's I don't know exactly how they felt about it, but certainly not surprising.
Mike McDaniel.
Hey, Coach, to follow up on Andrea's question, you all have had a ton of success in the transfer portal. I mean, even with the addition of Jordan Williams as a graduate transfer coming from another ACC school, but how do you think this change to the rule now allowing you to go out and get these players from other ACC schools without them sitting out for a year? Do you think this will change your approach to the portal at all?
I don't know if it'll change my approach. I don't know. Like, we're not finished seeing the changes that are coming, so I'm not going to jump out there and make a statement about it because it's not done changing. You know, it's just the way it is. Like, it's something everybody's going to deal with, and we've benefited as much as anybody from it, in my opinion. Now, for the first time since we've been here, we lost 2 players, and it hurt us this year. Now, we've got to find ways to make up for that and fill roles. But, you know, we'll see. I mean, I think being agile and paying close attention to it and, you know, trying your best to manage your own team is going to be important.
Mike Nizilik, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I had a couple. With the running backs, Adam Lechtenberg said you guys were going to probably maybe use some 2 running back sets to get some guys reps early on. I mean, do you feel like you'll be able to get a look at a lot of these guys quickly enough to kind of make a determination, or, you know, what's that competition going to just look like, kind of the structure of it to try to get, you got 8 guys trying to get reps?
Well, I mean, yeah, we'll put some 2-back stuff in there, but, I mean, those top 4 guys are going to get the reps. The other guys are going to have to battle to go get reps. So, you know, Holston, King, Blackshear, and Lee have deserved the opportunity, and those other guys are going to have to battle to go earn opportunity. And maybe they will, I don't know. But there'll be plenty of work throughout spring if we get to practice 15 times to get a good evaluation, and guys that earn those opportunities will get them.
And then how close they don't have as much experience, but do you feel like they are right in the mix with them, with Holston and Blackshear in terms of?
Well, we'll watch them practice first, and then we'll make that determination where they're at. I mean, those 4 guys have separated themselves from the other ones. Like, there's no need for me to go into separating all 4 of those guys out in a public forum before we've even practiced in the spring. So we'll see. Like, Keyshawn has been productive when he has played. He's in the middle of having a great offseason. Marco Lee had no chance last year because he wasn't in a good enough shape, and the coronavirus certainly didn't help that part of it. He's been a completely different person throughout our summer conditioning, and Jalen and Raheem have played a lot of football. So.
And then with guys with the off-season workouts, is there especially the younger ones, is there a correlation at all to having success and standing out to then transferring that over into spring and or is it different because you got to learn the playbook and things, or is it separate? Guys that stand out in the workouts, it's different than the spring practice part of it.
Certainly. I mean, we've all coached players that looked bad in off-season in shorts and a T-shirt, but when you played, were really good players. And we've also coached the workout warriors that were fantastic in the weight room and in the winter conditioning part of it, and then can't bust a grape out there in spring ball. So there's a balance in between all of that. I mean, certainly the training is important, or we wouldn't do it, but you have to take it all with a little grain of salt. You can't build a guy up to be too much through off season, and you can't you can't move on from a guy because of off season either. But those things are still important, and there is an element of development in there that certainly helps guys and gives them a chance to have success.
You guys were pretty beat up at the end of the season and voted not to go to the bowl. Did you feel like guys were rejuvenated when they got back with workouts? Did it take a minute to sort of get back to where you guys were the year before, before COVID? Or, what did you feel like with these workouts, where the locker room was at, considering where you guys left in December and things were kind of, pretty tired?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, I felt like they left in December on a high note, really positive. Like, it was a nice victory to end the thing off, and but certainly the weight and effect of everything they'd been dealing with certainly played a role in that. So I felt good about how they have come back. I mean, it has been a little more normal, I guess. I mean, we've been moving in and out of the weight room as that thing got changed around a little bit, which I don't know if that helped us or hurt us. It was kind of like one week we'd be lifting in the indoor, the other week we'd be lifting with the new equipment in the new weight room, and one week we'd be lifting with the old equipment in the new weight room. So it was, I don't know if it kept it fresh or different, but our kids have done a good job thus far. We're trying to find our identity as a team and as a squad, and we'll certainly need this segment here to hopefully improve.
Andy, do you have anything else?
Yeah, Justin, you guys have had a pretty stable kicking situation the last couple of years. You had some significant turnover there. Where do you start out with kicker and punter this spring? I know Romo was back. I'm not sure exactly how much stuff. He was a kickoff specialist before. Is he going to be doing kicking and punting, or where do you start with those positions?
Well, I mean, Romo will get a chance to be the kicker. You always need depth in case an emergency happens, but I think I know Peter will start out handling the punting duties, and then we'll just kind of go from there and try and figure it out. We've got Ross and Hoban here to help us out and kind of see how it goes, but we'll start off with Romo and Peter to kick spring off.
And you have a bunch of young receivers. How important of a spring is this for guys who were here last year, like Dalen Wright and Tyree Saunders? Then you have the two new guys, Jalen Jones and Dawan Lofton, too.
Yeah, I know. Like they're really the same. Really, the freshmen that came at semester and the freshmen that came last year. I mean, they're really in the same spot in terms of prepared to play. I mean, this spring will be huge for them. Dalen, again, I don't want to keep going through this, but I mean, they like missed all of fall camp. Almost the whole freshman class missed upwards of 2 weeks of fall camp. Well, then the games start and they've got no chance of getting caught up. It's a little bit just pretty difficult on those guys. So, you know, they're jumping right in with Lofton and Jones because they're basically the same. Basically, neither one of them, you know, those four guys haven't played. So it'll be big for them to get some reps and start to get a feel for what's going on. This spring will be big. I'm glad that we have the midterm guys in here as well to jump in there with the guys that were here last year.
All right, thanks everybody. We'll have quarterback Braxton Burmeister coming in next.
Slide that in here. Square it up with the players. Chris.